And after hiding him for 3 months, she couldn't hide him anymore because Moses was getting big and he was crying out. And what Moses' mother does, now here it is, this heroic woman again, after birthing Moses, and she kept him, and could have been killed for keeping the baby, but she showed her strength that she was going to trust God in this process. And here she is. Now she made a basket, and she made the basket out of the slim that had come out of the river. And some people call it the weeds that grows up, the reeds that grows up in the river. And they took the reeds and they formed a basket. And in this basket, matter of fact, I don't want to call it a basket because the Bible said the Bible didn't call it a basket. The Bible called it an ark. And I got to put a pin here tonight. Look what Moses does. She make this thing with her hands. And we call it a basket, but the Bible said it was an ark. And I thought about that because, even when God brought the flood up under the earth, and he called Noah and his sons and their families to build an ark against opposition. And this ark was to protect them when God brought the storm. When trouble came, God put them in the ark as they walked in and God closed the door. And this was their safety. Here it is now Moses' mother. She's doing this thing and she's building an ark. Come with me to verse 5. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down. Let me go back. Verse 3. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bushes. That's what the Bible said, an ark of bulrushes. And dabbed them with slim, which is tar and pitch, and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the riverbank. And here she is, Moses' sister, who was older than Moses. Her mother told Moses to get in the river and guide him to a certain place in the river. Matter of fact, guide him on down to Pharaoh's house. And you'll see Pharaoh, her daughter, when she comes out and with her handmaids, and they normally would go out and wash during the day. She said it'd be a good time to take Moses down there and you hide away from him so they can't see you, but they'll see the basket. And the Bible tells us that when Pharaoh's daughter had came out, verse 5, and the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself in the river, and her maids walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark, among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. Now understand, this ark, again, it wasn't just a basket, but it had a cover to it. It had an arch to it where that protected the child. And we're going to get to that in a minute. Let's go to verse 6. And when she had opened it, that's the pen right there. The ark wasn't just a basket that you put something in and put it in the river and send it down the river. She had to open the basket to see what was there. And so this basket was a safe place for Moses. This ark was a safe place for Moses. In verse 6, and when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe started crying, and she had compassion on him. It's something about weeping that make people have compassion. When the baby started crying, and here it is, Pharaoh's daughter, which is an Egyptian, even though she knew it was a Hebrew child, she had compassion on him because of the crying. And sometimes, when we cry out to God, we be looking for some compassion. Lord, help us. And here it is, Moses, the future leader of Israel, in the basket, standing in front of an Egyptian woman, but he was crying. And this let me know that when we're doing what God has asked us to do, even though we had to stand in the face of our enemy, God will show favor. And I looked at this, I went down to verse 7. It said, then his sister, then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter. Now, here it is, Moses' sister, Miriam. She was older than Moses. And she came out and spoke to Pharaoh's daughter when she opened the basket or the ark and seen Moses. And then look what she said in verse 7. Then his sister Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? Now, look how God landed this up. Not only is Pharaoh's daughter going to take Moses as her son, and then now Moses is going to be living in plush. He's going to have everything that he needs. And he's going to be protected because he's going to be protected in Pharaoh's house. Look, God will take his product, his child, and put him in the house of the enemy, and to make the enemy protect him and feed him and nurture him. Have you ever been in a situation like that, where your enemy was doing stuff for you and they didn't know why they were doing it, but they just knew that there was a power upon them when they had to do it? And here it is, because they knew that Moses was a Hebrew child. You can look at it and tell that he was not an Egyptian. So I went down to verse 8, and it said, Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. Now here it is, Moses' mother gave Moses up for a purpose, to save his life. And now here it is, his same mother is going to get a chance to come back and raise her child. She gave him up, and God gave him back. She gave him up to save his life. And then God turned around and gave Moses back to her. In verse 9, and Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee wages. Not only did she get a child back, but look what God does. God brings money in the house. In other words, you're going to get paid for raising your own child. God brought substance to the house because of the gift that this woman had gave. Went on down to verse 10, and it said, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And we know that now the name of Moses, what does it mean? Moses means to draw out. Moses or Messiah. Messiah means to draw out. And Moses is going to draw the people of Israel out of Egypt. His name meant something. And it meant to draw out. He didn't know it then. Don't know even his mother knew it then what the name is, but maybe she did. But that's the name that he was given. And that name is what he did. I went down to the second part of verse 11. Go to verse 11, if you will. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian spitting or punishing a Hebrew, one of his brothers. Now, here it is now. Moses is grown, and he went out one day over the territory, looking out the plains around the city. And here he is seeing an Egyptian beating up on a Hebrew. And Moses said, wait a minute, now I live in the house of the Egyptian, but this is my brother. This is my creed. You're not finna beat up on a Hebrew and you being an Egyptian. Moses didn't forget what I'm saying tonight, who he was, even though he grew up in the house of the Egyptian. Moses never forgot who he was. And so many times, it seems like when we get on Easy Street sometime, when we grow up somewhere and we get to a point where everything is going good, we forget about where we came from. And we forget about who we are. We start taking on the personality of them that is in the world. But when I looked at Moses said, no. I'm still a Hebrew. And I'm still my mother's, my daddy, and my God's child. And I went down in verse 12, if you will. And it said, he looked this way and that way. Let me go back and read that, the second part of verse 11. And it came to pass as in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian, seen an Egyptian punishing a Hebrew, one of his brothers. And he looked this way and he looked that way. And Moses said, who looking? Because I'm finna stop him from doing this. He's not finna hurt this man anymore. Then in verse 13, and when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strode. I can't go back. Let me go back to verse 12. And he looked this way and that way. And when he saw that there was no man, nobody looking, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Now Moses had committed a murder in a sense, but he was protecting one of his native men. And Moses gave protection there to save that man's life because the other man was trying to take him. And then in verse 13, it says, and when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strode together. And he said unto them, he said unto him that did the wrong, wherefore spitest thou fellow? Now, here it is. Moses see now two Hebrews fight. And Moses said, y'all quit that. Stop fighting one another. We got enough fight going on already against the Egyptians. Why should we continue to fight each other? Y'all know I'm trying to put a pin there, but I guess I better go ahead and move on. Why are we fighting so much against one another? Got enough trouble in the world already. But we fight against each other. And Moses said it's wrong. Second part of verse 13. And the two men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore spitest thou this fellow? And he said, who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Now this other guy, this Hebrew, trying to get rough with Moses. He said, who are you to talk to me? You've been living in the Egyptian house. You can't tell us who we can fight against. And then Moses looked this way and he looked that way. And the Bible said that he slew the Egyptian. And then one of the Hebrews saw it. And they were going to tell on Moses, man, you can't tell me what to do. And then Moses knew that it was time for him to get out of that. Because if he had been found out that he had killed an Egyptian, then Moses' life would have been on the line. But let me go down to verse 15 real quick. It said, now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. When the news got back to Pharaoh, he put a bounty on Moses' head. And Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. And while Moses was on the run, he was tired. And he now in the land of Midian. He done left Egypt and he's gone on. And he's now in the land of Midian. And then there was a priest that was there in the land of Midian. And he had 7 daughters, verse 16. And they came and drew water and filled their trough to water their father's flock. Watch God here. And verse 17, and the shepherd came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. Now here Moses made it to the land of Midian, and he still encountered some good folk being messed with by some uncaring people. The shepherds there didn't want the daughters of Jethro to water their flock. And Moses fought them off by himself and not only fought them off by himself, but then I'm sure what a man should do. Y'all go over there, women, and sit down just for a minute and rest yourself. And Moses watered the flock. Moses took on that role of being a man, and he said, let me do the work that you're doing. Verse 17, and the shepherd came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And look at verse 18. And when they came to Ruel, their father, which is Jethro, he said, how is it that you got back so soon today? Normally it take y'all all day to go and to water the flock and get back. And then they told their story to Jethro, their father. And look what they said in verse 19. And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. Now, why would they say an Egyptian? Moses grew up, he's a Hebrew, but he grew up also in an Egyptian house. Moses could speak Egyptian, he could speak Hebrew, and probably some of his ways that Moses had may been interpreted as him being an Egyptian, but actually he was a Hebrew. Verse 19, and they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. Somebody that you didn't even know stopped by to help you. Ain't that something? We need more of that today. You ain't got to know everybody to stop and help somebody. Now, let me go back because I won't get anybody in trouble. And the time in which we're living, we have to choose when it is a good time for us to stop and help somebody. If I'm a woman or even a man sometime at night, and somebody is broke down and you see them there and you're driving in your car, it wouldn't be a smart thing to stop and try to see what is going on or to help. But what could help is if you got a phone and they may not have one, and get on the line and call the police station and tell them that somebody is broke down on side of the road. Could you please send a car? That's helping, but you're doing it in such a way that you're not putting yourself in a bad situation. So yeah, we find ways that we can help one another still yet in the time in which we're living. I know our time is out tonight, but if you will, just give me just about 2 more minutes and then we're going to be finished. I went down also to verse 20, and he said unto his daughters, and where is this man that y'all talking about? Why is it that you left the man at the watering hole? Call him that he may eat bread with us. We want to show our gratitude for what he did today. Ain't nothing wrong with gratitude, is it? Gratitude is one of the best things that's going on in the whole world, to be grateful for the good things that happen to us by showing kindness to others. And then in verse 21, and Moses was content to dwell with Jethro, and Jethro gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter, to marry. And now Moses, he's having his own family, because in verse 22, and we'll stop here tonight, in verse 22, and she bare him a son and called his name Gershom. But he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land, Don't forget the word Gershom. It's going to be very important on next week's lesson. Thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank Brother William. He worked diligently to get us on tonight, as he always does. And we don't take it lightly. We thank him for all that he do to make this happen for us every Wednesday night. And it's definitely been a blessing to the ministry, myself, and I'm sure all of you as well. So if you will tonight, let's go ahead and turn our lines on. And as we say, our hellos and our goodbyes.
I was waiting for the next step and how the Egyptians became control over Israel, but I think we're going to get there a little bit later on. But I did enjoy the lesson tonight. This is Mother Banks.
Oh, bless you, Mother Banks. Yes, Lord. That time be running up on us. I wanted to get there, but
it's all right. It's still good. All good.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. We thank everybody for signing on tonight. I don't have my screen up to see who we have tonight, so I just thank everyone. All I can see is myself, and I did that. But thank everyone for signing on tonight, and we ask that you will continue to be praying for our church members. We have so many that are sick and that are going through, and so let's just try to remember as collectively as we can to pray ye for one another on a daily basis, because we all need some kind of help.
Yes, we do. Amen.
So we thank God again for you.
Lord.
Amen. So if
Amen.
you will, amen. Come on. This is our hellos and our goodbyes.
Hi, Pastor.
Great Bible study. Hello, everybody. Tell First Lady we
Amen.
Hello.
Amen.
Hi, Pastor.
Brandon, Sister Betty. Amen.
And praying for Mother Logwood as well. She's not feeling well.